Hello everybody. Here I have a 2007 F-150. And it's got a rotted frame. Pretty badly rotted frame. All over the place. It's just the rear section's really the bad part. The front has some rot, but it's not nearly as bad as the rear here. And so what I'm going to attempt to do is I'm going to take that rear frame section off a 2014 F-150 and splice it onto this frame. I don't know how it's going to go, but we're going to find out. So I'll show you first how bad it is. So I already got the gas tank out. I took most of this wiring, gas tank, plumbing off the rear. So this was under the gas tank. I don't even know how this thing was holding together. It's going forward, it's not so bad, but this is where it's really bad. So there's that one, and then coming to the other side, it's also really bad right there. So most of the front half is intact, but the rear half is gone. And I mean gone to the point where I hit it with a hammer and put this hole in it. There's just, the metal's all flaking apart. There's no saving the rear half. Yet somehow, most of the front section's in fairly good shape. Usually they rot terribly on the bottom. It's not terribly rotted. So my plan of attack is going to be get all the suspension off, its wheels and tires, drop the axle down, get the front part of the truck up on jack stands. And when I've done that, I'm going to try and cut along the leaf spring mounts, cut along this seam, and try and remove the rear half on both sides. Now, obviously, I'm going to have to do some splicing in order to get this rear section replaced. I also have one for the right, one for the left. These fascias, if you will. This is the one for the left. That's the one for the right that I'm going to use for extra support. So this frame here is off a 2014 F-150 with minimal rust. I mean, it's pretty immaculate for an 8-year-old truck in the Rust Belt. The only difference in the 2009 through 14 frames is the leaf springs were extended. They're about 3 inches longer, so the front mount, rather than being here, is actually up here. I'm going to reuse the mount on there instead of these and reuse the old leaf springs, and it'll attach somewhere in here, and I'll weld that in. Now, since I have all of this as well with it, I'm going to take sections off of here and weld them in as needed. So that's the start, and we'll come back to you when this thing's off the ground and we get cutting. All right, I got the new frame all set. It's just about ready to go on. So get this side cleaned up. I didn't even bother down there because the leaf spring mount will act as the bottom brace between the two, and that steel on the sides is in good shape still. So I'll clean that up. But this thing's almost ready to be installed. Hello everybody, we're back again with an update. The outsides are done. I got the plate brackets in place and welded in, just as an extra, just for some extra support. It's looking pretty clean so far. I just have to do the inside ones. Sorry about the fan noise. It got really smelly in here, so I have the fan on, airing the place out. Excuse me. This is the passenger side. Same idea, just a little extra support, just in case. Not the prettiest welds, but this thing's under its own weight. It's looking pretty good. We'll stay tuned. And we're back again. This is probably about 2 weeks after the last update, but all the welding is done. So that's what I did for the splice section. There was a little weak spot there, so I welded this patch over. That's the inside of this one. And I did the rail kits that run all the way down. Welded those all in. Same with the passenger side. Welded those all in. And luckily everything was lined up perfect. If I put all my weight on it, I think the jack stand flexes before the frame does. This thing is solid. I think it should last another 5 to 10 years. So next step's gonna be clean everything up, get it ready for painting. We'll come back once it's been primed and painted, and then we're gonna start getting this thing back together. All right, so we're back here the next day. We got everything just about cleaned up. I even swapped most of the rust off the floor into a ton of piles. But the steel's pretty much cleaned up and ready for paint. I went over it with a wire wheel and wire brush. I just kind of wanted to do a final walk around before I go through paint. That's the left side leaf spring. And you can see it runs all the way up there with the patch. This is the right side. Same idea. The patch that runs all the way up front. This is the inside. That was partially already primed. This is the left side, going all the way underneath. It's all cleaned up. That's the outside of the left leaf spring mount. So I wanted to touch on real quick why this truck had this problem. And the culprit was one of those rubberized undercoatings that are prone to flaking and capturing moisture and salt. And that's exactly what happened, which ate away at the bottom half of the frame all over. Luckily, it didn't really eat at any of the top here. But yeah, those rubberized coatings, I would avoid them at all costs, because that one rotted out my frame, and it'll come for yours. I'm planning to paint this with a gloss black. I'm just gonna paint the front half. I'm gonna leave the rear half because it's in really good shape. And then I'm gonna do the whole thing over in fluid film, which is almost a rust penetrant, but it's meant to be oily, meant to allow the metal to breathe. And honestly, when things cake onto it, it actually makes it stronger. I've heard a lot of people have good results with that, so that's what I'm gonna do with this frame. Stay tuned. All right, we're back. Frame's painted, and most of it's sprayed on with fluid film. I did part of the frame already. I'll do the rest when I get it back together. This is how the final product came out. Pretty darn good, if you ask me. And that's the fluid film on the rear. Still have all that to do. Here's the passenger side. Down to the other side. That's the passenger, the driver's side. And I've already started, but I gotta start taking some of these brackets over. Like, I had to weld this part of the, I don't know even know what it's called, for the fuel system, the evap thing for the fuel system. Had to mount the bracket on here and weld it to this new frame. I have to see if the fuel pump driver module will fit in those 2 holes. If it does, that's great. I'll just mount it right there. And some other miscellaneous stuff before we get the whole thing back together. So we'll check back with you as we're getting parts back in. And finally, after about a month, she's on the ground. She's running. There it is. Mostly done. I still got to do all the rear end wiring. Got it running. This thing runs so nice. The exhaust is in. I just got to double check, tighten the drive shaft bolts. Just wanted to make sure it ran. Make sure there was no fuel leaks. But this thing is just about ready for a road test. So we'll let you know how it drives. Hello everybody. It's been a couple weeks since I did an update, but the truck's all done. I got a little bit of a load in the back, just some mulch, but came up pretty good. The body lines are pretty darn close, maybe off by a hair, but overall it's been great. Put about 1,000 miles on it so far, and no issues that I can see. It drives straight, and I'm happy with the result. Take you underneath. Here we are. Kind of see it. There you go. And I'll show you the other side. Much better than what it was. Pretty clean. So thank you everybody for tuning in, and I hope this helps somebody. Take it easy.